Hello there, you're watching The Pulse on the Joy News channel. Coming up in the next hour, minority in Parliament takes on Minister for Lands and Natural Resources over the controversial 15-year mining lease to Barari DV Ghana Limited, which gives green light for the mining of lithium in the central parts of Ghana.
144 declare
that the agreement between the government of Ghana and Barari DV should be laid before Parliament without delay.
Well, there's more coming up this afternoon as we hear from the sector minister who's justifying the deal, describing it as one which is in the interest of Ghanaians. Also this afternoon, we're paying close attention to this as government is already bowing to public pressure, revoking now its proposed import restriction bill, which is attracting a lot of criticism amongst especially the business community. We'll hear from Ghana's Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah on why the U-turn, but the minority is already welcoming the move.
We have taken a decision that until the committee is satisfied that that is done, the airline should not be delayed.
There's more coming up shortly on that for you, and it's exactly a year and from today, as we do the permutation, Ghanaians will be heading to the polls to choose the next leader of the country. Who will it be? Will it be the NDC's John Dramani Mahama, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, or will a third force surprisingly emerge? That's the question we're asking, and perhaps doing the analysis ahead of the 2024 general elections. You want to be my guest here on The Pulse as we bring you this and many more stories brought to you by Global Communities, Dignilu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Don't forget that we're DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, and of course on YouTube, Facebook, and myjoyonline.com. I'm Blessed Sugan. Welcome to The Pulse. Joy News is independent, fearless, and credible. We'll be back. Well, this afternoon, Ghana's lithium deal is in the ultimate interest of the people of Ghana. The words of the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, who's now justifying a 15-year mining lease to Barari DV Ghana Limited, which commences or opens the floodgates for the construction, or perhaps the mining, I should say, of lithium at where in the Mfansima municipality of the Central Region. Well, there's been growing opposition to the international agreement from a number of civil society groups, including also Ghana's former Chief Justice, Sophia Akufo, who's describing the mineral resource arrangement as a breeding ground for judgment debt. But today, the Lands and Natural Resources Minister rebutted all of these claims, arguing that the deal is in the interest of the people of Ghana.
It will be recalled that a policy statement presented to Parliament last year considered the option of establishing an entity along the lines of the Ghana Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation, GIADEC, and the Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Development Corporation, GISDEC. However, the volumes of the mineral we have currently and our quest to ensure optimal benefit for the exploitation of this mineral meant that that option was not feasible for several considerations. Firstly, globally, only China has an end-to-end lithium value chain. This is why we have instituted in this transaction the retention of a significant part of the value chain, which we will work systematically to eventually construct here in our country the full value chain for lithium. But as we have said, we will not export lithium in its raw form. Everything we have done in respect of this transaction and all the measures we have put in place in respect of this particular transaction will mean that Ghana's lithium resources will not be exported in their raw state. That is why the mining lease includes provisions for the establishment of a refinery and the provision of the use of other linkages to support local industries in Ghana. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in everything we have done with this mining lease, in all humility and modesty, the interest of the Ghanaian people has been paramount. It has been months of thorough negotiations and hard work in respect of this transaction. Nothing has been agreed to casually. Everything has been thought through and everything has been worked out and all the options have been considered. And what we've arrived at is in the ultimate interest of the good people of Ghana.
Meanwhile, the minority in Parliament say government must immediately put before the House the lithium mining agreement signed with Barari DV. Minority spokesperson on the Mines and Energy Committee, John Jilla, says the deal must come before the House immediately, while warning the company not to mine until parliamentary ratification.
You may be aware, Article 268, and let me re-emphasize, Article 268 of the 1992 Constitution is explicit, and it states that any transaction, including but not limited to the application for a license to exploit a natural resource, requires prior parliamentary approval. On this note, I want to make it loud and clear and succinct and explicit that the agreement between the government of Ghana and Barari DV should be laid before Parliament without delay. And let me assure the people of Ghana that the minority would not let you down. We would scrutinize the agreement. We would not allow this agreement to be rushed through. We would seek the guidance, the involvement of civil society. We will speak to important personalities, including former Chief Justice, Justice Sofai Akufu, who has been vocal on this lithium agreement. The new order is lithium. Lithium is more profitable than gold. Lithium is more profitable than diamond. And the world order is moving to this green mineral. And so the minority would insist that Ghana benefits from this resource, and that the terms and agreements, if they are not in the interest of Ghana, the minority would kick against that. But let me re-echo and re-emphasize that we demand that the Akufo-Addo-led government tables or lay this agreement before Parliament without delay. And let me also caution Barari that any attempt to commence mining without parliamentary approval would be illegal. And I also want to caution officials of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, as well as the Minerals Commission, that they have no authorization to allow Barari to commence mining of lithium without parliamentary approval.
So that's John Jilla a while ago addressing concerns, of course, that's emerging, especially from civil society and also the concerns of minority relating to this Barari DV deal, which the Lands Minister is equally justifying. I want to bring in now Dr. Samuel Obri, who's the Executive Director for the Center for Environment Impact Analysis. He is helping us do this discussion, particularly as concerns are emerging over issues relating to transparency and also the concerns that the minority is now raising about the need for parliamentary ratification. And of course, there are also environmental groups raising issues relating to sustainability, especially knowing that we are indeed learning some lessons from issues surrounding the way we've treated issues surrounding illegal mining is the reason for which some of these environment groups are equally concerned that government needs to be very mindful of the environmental impact. Dr. Samuel Obri is the Executive Director for the Center for Environment Impact Analysis. He's joining us now. And Dr. Samuel Obri, if you can hear me, welcome to the Pulse. The question, first of all, Dr. Obri, about sustainability, which the environment groups are raising. What do you have to say, first of all, about the demands that we subject this to parliamentary ratification so there will be transparency? Okay, it appears that we're having some challenges connecting with Dr. Samuel Obri, who is with the Center for Environmental Impact Analysis there, but we'll still keep an eye on the story and, of course, bring you some updates as and when we have it. But we stay in Parliament because government is finally bowing to pressure and finally revoking that controversial import restriction legislative instrument. Well, the minority in Parliament over the period, and of course for about 3 times now, blocked attempts by the Sector Minister Katie Hammond to push for the passage of the legislative instrument in spite of justifications by government that the move is to protect local industries and to improve the performance of the Ghana cities. Well, just days ago, a group of 6 industry unions stormed Parliament and, of course, made a passionate appeal for the import restriction bill to be blocked. Here are excerpts of what transpired.
It's very important that any country becomes self-sufficient. But the way to go had been the problem. And especially when we have also been there in the issuance of permits that did not result in any gains for the nation. And that's why we wanted to remind them that that's surely not the way to go, and that we can adopt different methodologies to enhance on local production. You know, the cement is thriving. Other industries are thriving, not necessarily that they brought permits. But you also know that there are some products that, as I'm speaking, there's permit issuance, but it's not thriving. So the way to go is not restricting us. We have even made it clear that we will be better off that they ban the product rather than to bring restrictions and impediments on our way of trading in this era of trade liberalization. We cannot do that. We will not accept anything that will impede on trade facilitation, that hinders on cost of doing business, time of doing business, and ease of doing business. And that's exactly what we've told the committee, that they should hold on with this LI, and that will support government in its quest to increase productivity so that we will patronize same. That's essentially what we need as a country. But if we do not have the produce, or our produce is even overpriced, that it cannot be sold to the rest of our neighboring countries, then we have a problem. That's what we have to look at to solve the main problem at hand, rather than putting the restriction ahead. It seems that we can even achieve our aims by doing the right thing, putting the right measures in place that will make sure that if we are doing import substitution, then we have the clear alternatives, because we are traders. If you say that we should stop buying from outside, then we are telling us that we should have access to the produce from within. But if you haven't done any measures that will give us the comfort and the assurance that we will have the goods from within, then we are doing the whole exercise in emptiness.
Government has, unfortunately, as it may be for them, changed their mind on the story because the latest we are getting is that the LI will no longer be laid, according to Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah. He's been explaining why, of course, government is deciding to take this move to my colleague, Mamiesi Nyamishe Thompson.
Well, first, we think that the economic objectives will work well for our growth and for jobs and our development agenda. And therefore, it's important to get all stakeholders aligned as we go along this process. And so the idea is to suspend the laying, engage some more further to get some more understanding and participation before we go in. Because, you know, it's an ally. You've got to factor in all of these views. Then when you lay, it can mature after the necessary 21 days, because it's not a bill that will be amended on the floor. And so this to give us the opportunity to complete all of these engagements before any such laying takes place.
Well, it's interesting that this is coming up, because that has always been the cry of stakeholders, you know, but the minister kept insisting that there had been some consultations and that he has been given the go-ahead, even by the minority side, to lay it. And so what really changed?
Despite all of the engagement and the initial assurances, when it got onto the floor, I'm sure you heard the kind of responses that were generated, and even the Speaker's orbiter, that the views that had been expressed by the minority were views that they were channeling from other stakeholders. To the extent that all of those views had been expressed on the floor, they were influencing the key parts of the LI as had been drafted. Nonetheless, we are of the view that it is important, it is better to get everybody's alignment before we make any progress on this matter. And that's why we're suspending the laying for some continued engagement before we proceed with this agenda.
Do you have any idea when these engagements will begin?
We haven't fixed timelines as to when it will end. But as was mentioned by the minister, the engagement started over a month ago. The feedback appears that some more conversations are required, and therefore we'll go ahead with those conversations, and when we come to a terminal point, then do the laying.
And who will these engagements be had with? I mean, we're talking about the Rice Producers Association, the Animal Rearers and Animal Importers Association.
Fabag, vehicle dealers, Guta. You know, if you look at the LI, there are about at least 15 or so items that are listed there. And there are various producers of these items. There are also organizations that deal in the importation of these items as well. So it's a full extensive engagement with all of these stakeholders that we are continuing, not to start, to continue, and then hopefully get to a certain sense of clarification before we take the next steps.
Well, Joy News is learning that part of the reasons for which government is making this U-turn could possibly be because of the conditionality with the International Monetary Fund. Joining us now is data analyst here at Joy News, Isaac Ofieje, who's been looking at, the agreement between the government of Ghana and the International Monetary Fund, a reason for which we suspect that might be part of the reasons for which government is also making this U-turn now, because we've seen mounting pressure from 6 unions, from the car dealers, from the Import and Export Association. Guta is on board, just as we indicated earlier, and government will not budge. Now they are doing so, and we say that it's possibly because of the deal with the IMF. Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at the IMF program between 2023 this year and 2026, there is possibly no economic decision that government can unilaterally just decide to do. Things that has to do with balance of payments, exchange rates, inflation targeting. All of this must be done in consonance with the IMF program. There should be some sort of respect to the IMF document that has been signed and in the public domain. So we are looking at page 76 of the IMF program document available to the public. And they are on page 75 and 76, there are 4 things that government cannot do. And they've agreed with the IMF that they cannot do these 4 things. The first one is that there will be no imposition or intensification of restrictions on the making of payment and transfers for current international transactions. That's the first one that government cannot just decide that they will not do. Second is that there will be no introduction of modification of multiple currency practices. We cannot do that whilst we are still under the IMF program. The third one is that no conclusion of bilateral payments, agreements that are inconsistent with Article 8 of the IMF Articles of Arrangement. All of this we cannot do. And the last one, which actually accommodates this import restriction, is very important to note, is that there will be no imposition or intensification of import restrictions for balance of payment reasons.
I see.
And remember, the trade minister, Katie Amon, when he was trying to lay this LI, says that, it's because of balance of payment. They looked at the books and they realized that government was spending so much on these 22 items that they call strategic items. If you look at rice, for instance, we're spending more than $500 million, more than $500 million on rice importation. You look at things like palm oil, spending somewhere around 120 million, and even wigs, fake hair, spending more than 120 million on wigs as well, and other, products like toothpick, matchsticks, and all of those things. Now, it's in the IMF program, and government has actually agreed. that they cannot impose any form of restriction or intensification of import restriction for balance of payment reasons.
And this is on page
75 and 76 of the
75
IMF
of the IMF program. Indeed, a reason for which we're, of course, drawing that strong conclusion that it might be part of the reasons, because, of course, pressure has been mounting for a number of days now. Isaac J, thank you for giving us that update. Well, ranking member on the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament, Bernard Ahiafo, says that the decision to actually suspend the laying of the airline is welcome.
It is good that this particular airline is suspended to give room for further consultation, because at the material moment that the airline was being considered by the Committee on Subsidiary Legislation, I was with that particular committee. So I took part in the consideration of the airline provision by provisions, but there were issues at preliminary stage. One of the issues raised at the preliminary stage was the fact that the committee wants to satisfy itself whether the ministry, before bringing the airline, has done a stakeholder engagement, and if so, the committee will want to see a report from the ministry indicating that a stakeholder engagement has been done, so that all the stakeholders and Ghanaians, for that matter, are carried along in the passage of this particular airline after its introduction into law. They haven't brought anything that I have perused to the effect that there has been a stakeholder engagement as required by the committee. So we have taken a decision that until the committee is satisfied that that is done, the airline should not be delayed. The second reading was that, having regard to the items listed at page 15 of the airline, we took the items one after the other. That one, taking rice into consideration, committee members are not oblivious of the fact that Ghana, we are producing rice. But what we are producing, is it enough to take care of the country for us to be putting measures in place to restrict the importation? Simply because if that is not taken into consideration, what will happen is that any power given to the minister to license, if the minister decides not to license, it may lead to a shortage of rice in the country, and that definitely will translate into the increase in price of rice.
And of course, it is emerging, as we have pointed out, that this might also be because of the IMF deal that's ongoing. But a lot is happening in Parliament now, and other groups are mounting pressure for government to reconsider this deal, or possibly just in the deal in its entirety. One of those groups is the of course, Vehicle Dealers Union of Ghana. Joining us now is Frank Atanle Kofiga, Executive Secretary of the Vehicle and Asset Dealers Union. Of course, this must be great news for you, knowing that just a couple of days ago you were in Parliament together with Guta and other unions asking government to try and make a U-turn on this deal. How are you receiving the news, first of all?
I think it's a welcoming news. We are happy about it. It has brought some closure to what we perpetrated over the weeks. And I think for now, we will go back and then have that engagement, a continued engagement, like the Honorable Minister said, so that we can see what comes out after this.
Oh, okay. Well, government hasn't stated clearly what the next line of action will be, but if it is the case that government simply revises a portion of the LI and still brings back, a certain sense of import restriction, will you still be okay with that, knowing that at least the laws will be relaxed now?
The only reason for government to bring back, if they are to go back and then sort of amend it, will be if they are able to show up capacity. the basic underlying factor in this is capacity. Are we ready for this? Is the country ready? Are we manufacturing enough in order to supply the markets? So if government should come back and then we are satisfied and we know where we can get our supply from, and then...
And each time you make that argument, of course, many take you on to say, when will be the right time for us to boost local production capacity? We need to start from somewhere at least.
Yes, we need to have a national discourse about this. We need to take our time, okay? We don't need to rush this at all. We need to first be Ghanaians before every other thing, okay? We shouldn't look at our personal interest. We need to sit down and have a good developmental plan about how we can move this country forward. You and I will have to do that, okay? Right. We shouldn't be import dependent, yes. But what do we have to do? We have to look at manufacturing. So the manufacturing sector, what are the incentives government is giving out in order that we can be able to produce, we can be able to manufacture? You understand? If we have that discussion and then we take it a step at a time, I think that will help. We've been talking about countries like South Africa, Nigeria, and what have you. Yeah. If I'm going to use rice, even though I'm talking
as an
about
example, yes, for instance, yes.
If we're going to put economics of scale and preference and choice, okay, we are used to white jasmine rice, long grain rice. Nigeria is used to parboiled rice. And then if they're going parboiled rice, it's going to really work in Nigeria. But in Ghana, our taste is with long grain rice, number 5, jasmine rice, and the others. So until we are able to manufacture the rice that will meet the taste of the people, then there is no
Okay, so but this is the point where people say, okay, the cereals might be a safe escape for all those of you in the business community. But if we do a case-by-case analysis, then we'll come to the conclusion that indeed government needs to do some level of restriction. Let's take your industry, for instance, the automobile industry. In just this year alone, or in the last few years, the Trade and Industry Ministry has outdoored a number of vehicle assembling plants.
Yeah.
The ultimate aim is to boost local production, create more jobs, and to sort of, give a new face to the automobile industry. That's a sufficient way of dealing with the problem, isn't it?
Yes, it's a good start. It's a good start.
Are you saying these people cannot meet the local demand?
The market. In Ghana, we consume 100,000 units of vehicle every year. Before the assemblers came in, the brand new dealers, okay, those in that market are only doing 10% of the entire units that we consume, okay? Even with that, they're not able to make up the 10%. So you realize that the used market often bring in some of the new ones. If you go on the Spinters Road, you see the brand new vehicles scattered everywhere. Right. Now, we are talking about assembling in Ghana. Most of these plants are not assembling up to 300 units every year. Okay?
They don't?
They don't. They don't. We've not seen it.
And you're saying this based on facts,
right? Saying this based on facts. We have the facts. We have the figures, okay? They don't manufacture up to 300 units. Then it means that how are you able to distribute? Then distribution comes back, okay? Yeah. How are you able to distribute these vehicles to your, what do you call it? Your channels, and then give to the over 4,000 car garages we have in the country. So we are still talking about the fact that, and even if I'm to expand it, but still talking about choice. How many assembly plants do we have here? 7, 8?
Yes.
Do you have Mercedes? Do you have Audi? Do you have?
Are you saying all of your people would choose Mercedes, would choose Audi by all means?
You see, before
is that what you're suggesting? At least we have some options here in the country.
Before I got to the studio, I took some time to look on the
streets, and
look at the kind of vehicles that Ghanaians are used to now. We've moved from the times when we were doing Peugeot, way back in the 80s.
Yeah, but just to be fair to brands, we don't want to commit any legal blunder here. So let's save the brands for now. That was a slip, by the way, because these cars and these companies manufacture new brands. They come with improved, quality, like the Peugeot you're referring to. And there are other brands as well that are locally manufacturing here. That's the point.
We have other brands that are locally manufactured here. Sorry, not manufactured, locally assembled.
Assembled, yes.
Okay, locally assembled. So that if you're going to take a questionnaire, there are a lot of things that are affecting the market. It's not only, it doesn't have to do with only the assembling, okay? We are talking about the market.
Yes.
We're talking about the job and the employment and then the numbers, okay? Let's take, for example, let's put together the entire assembly plants we have in Ghana now, okay? Let me just play the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
They have up to 2,000. The labor force there is about 2,000, okay? What happens? If you go to Tesano alone, we have more than 2,000 people there. What happens to these people if we put them out of business? What happens to Abosokan, where we buy our spare parts? Okay, look at the number of people who drive every single day to Abosokan to buy parts because of the used car dealers.
Yeah.
Look at the value chain. Look at the total number of people in the value chain. What happens to them? Now, let me tell you what the value chain starts from.
Right.
It starts from the port. It starts with the agents who first clears the vehicle. The total number of tow trucks at the port that truck these vehicles to town. Agents will go out of business. The tow truck will go out of business when it comes straight to the garages where we fix them.
Right.
We have the panel beaters, we have the welders, we have the air conditioners, the auto repairers, the electricians, the key programmers, all of these people, okay? So if government is to take this whole restriction into consideration, they will have to create a market. First, for all these people, you have to create employment for all these people. How do we do that?
Okay, how about this argument as well, that even if there were to be, a liberalized space, you are still not going to patronize what's being produced locally. That argument is also there, that you're heavily reliant on imports because you feel that that's where you can find cheap markets, quote and unquote, because of the kind of vehicles you're bringing in.
Yes. Ask me why. Because it is cheaper to import, even with the high taxes and duties we are paying at the port, than the locally assembled ones.
Yeah, but that's not an excuse enough. We are looking at boosting. It's as though you're choosing profits in that regard over, saving the economy, boosting local production. I guess that's been the argument of government.
No, you see, there are two ways to this. There are two ways to this. One, yes, profits. Everybody goes into
because you go into the cheaper markets, bring the vehicles, sell them at relatively the same prices that will get them from the local assembling points. That's the argument.
No, you cannot buy a 2008. Okay, you cannot get a 2008 or 2010 Toyota Corolla in the assembly plant now because it's way overdue.
Out of the market.
Out of the age is it's no longer in production. Okay, so what do? We have not gotten to that time in this country where each and everybody can have facilities to go and buy brand new vehicles. And for this market to work, it means that these new assemblers will have to roll out a policy where trade-in, okay, will be very feasible and very easy, that we can have another market of used vehicles that will come from them. You understand? So you need a number of years for this to be feasible. And this we have already put in, or we have already drafted in the Standards Authority standardization that we've spent a lot of time putting together. Okay, so seeing motor vehicles in this restriction, it was a bit unfortunate. It came as a shock to us because we spent time moving from the Custom Amendment Act 2020 to the standardization and then the restriction. Okay, we need to take our time. We need to hasten slowly on this. Government should look at the broader what do you call it, aspect of this particular market, and then the
okay,
other.
so let's get to it then, since you believe that there are more issues within the sector that needs to be dealt with by government. What's your next line of action? Where would you want government focus on now that at least we know the import restriction is on hold?
Now, we want government to focus on an engagement that will help the market grow. Looking at the numbers we are talking about, there is a need for people to now diversify. We have components, okay, that a group of dealers can come together and probably manufacture for the assemblers, okay. We have windshield. We have a whole lot of things that we can do to support this market to grow.
Right.
So if government is engaging us enough, okay, I'm very sure 2-3 people can come together, form a company, or the association can come together and then put these incentives, if we get from government, to be able to produce and also help. With this, you have people moving out of the market slowly, and then this particular market can get the kind of independence it needs. Okay, but it's not now. We need to take some time. It will take some time to do this, so that at least we can also say that now in Ghana, we are not dependent on only imported vehicles. We have moved from even only assembling them to manufacturing them from scratch.
I see. The Guta engagement, of course, when you met in Parliament, of course, Parliament says it was going to get back to you on the way forward and what should be expected in the coming days. What do you plan to do as these trade unions? What's the next line of action? How do you intend to engage government on the alternatives and the way forward? What will be happening in the coming days?
I think that if we cannot engage government, government has to engage.
I get the point.
Because
Okay,
they have their programs and
the policies. Yes,
policies. Okay, when they invite us, we also bring in our know-how, our input as to how this can actually work. We had a very fruitful engagement when we met with the Parliament Select Committee, and then headed by Dr. Ayine. I think
yes.
he stepped in, and I think that was the first stakeholder engagement that we had, that we felt that at least we were once involved. Okay.
So the rest they were just.
They were not stakeholder engagements. There was no stakeholder engagement. If I would say, I think we went and we.
But you're not being fair to the Trade Ministry if you describe it as such.
Okay, so
yes.
I wouldn't want to go too much into it because
it's all gone now.
There are documents to show.
Yeah.
Okay, because there was no stakeholder engagement that says that restrictions or an ally to restrict a group of items. I think if we had that heading that way, I think the conversation would have had in a different way. So I think we had a very good conversation. I think we got the opportunity to also hear from the people who represent us, and they want to take up our grievances and then our issues up. And then they promised us that they were going to do as much as they can to make sure that this bill doesn't pass. Yes, but now that it's been suspended, I think it's a welcome news, and we are hoping to see what happens after this.
Okay, and just as we wrap up, as vehicle dealers, of course, we're going into the festivities. You need liquidity, of course, in terms of the dollars, in terms of importation and whatever it is that you intend to do. Knowing now that government says the import restriction was rather going to help the city to appreciate and for you to do a better business, how do you intend to make up for that now that the regulation is no longer there?
I think we've been in this business for quite some time. We've dealt with the financial institutions. We know how to transfer monies out of the country. Often, when it gets to the festivities, it's very difficult to get the foreign exchange and then the rates. Okay, I can see even as of today, it's almost at 12, or if not more than 12 now. Yeah. Okay, and then the unavailability of the dollar in the financial sector, makes people or makes most of the automobile dealers go into the black market and what have you. But because of the restrictions that we've got with the documentations you have to present at the port before you are even able to clear your vehicle, I think most of these things are streamlined and is helping governments, kind of like manage their economies of well. And
I see. Well, Kofi, thank you for spending some time with us here in studio. And of course, we look forward to what the next line of action will be from the Trade and Industry Ministry. But there's been a lot of agitation in the business community today as well. Some traders at the Opal Square are up in arms with the Accra Metropolitan Assembly over attempts to evict them. The Accra Metropolitan Assembly, in a notice, claims the citing of the stores in the area is in contravention of the Section 1061 of the Local Government Act. Hence, the failure to actually produce permits by tomorrow, 8th December 2023, will mean that, of course, all of these shops will be completely removed from the current location. But the traders say that the action taken by the AMA is illegal. Samuel Mbura now reports.
Grieved traders here at Opera Square are dealers in electricals. They have given a strong indication that they would deal mercilessly with anyone or any group of people who attempt to demolish their structures. Listen to the leader of the group, Mr. William Adakwa, addressing the traders earlier today.
We, by this note, we, by this press conference, asking AMA, Chief Executive, to also show cause why they should not put any structure here without our notice. So, from now, we are asking the authority, anybody who mistakenly come here for any purpose will deal with that person mercilessly. And we are not going to tolerate anything. Please, this is Guta, Opera Branch. We are not going to sit down. Why trader community are being rude? Why Guta, Opera Branch are being used? Why Guta are not being notified? We are not going to sit down.
The Ghana Union Traders Association is strongly backing its members. Mr. Benjamin Yeboah, who is in charge of welfare at Guta, says they will continue to engage the AMA and all those who matter on this issue to ensure that their supporters and members are protected.
We are worried because definitely as Guta National, we have that collaborative this with AMA. So we felt that in case there is anything of this sort, at least they could have notified us and come to talk to us, because they are our members, and you can't just come within the hour of darkness, place some stickers and give them just a short notice that they should explain why they are here. And per our checks, these people or these members of Ghana Electrical Dealers have been here so many years, and why even now? And that is what we are realizing now. So yes, they've informed us the national will be notified formally, and then we'll take this matter up seriously.
So the Accra Metropolitan Assembly and leaders of the Metro Mass here at Opera Square are yet to respond to allegations raised by the traders. Reporting from the Opera Square here in Accra, Samuel Mbura, Joy News.
It's time now to speak to Benjamin Yeboah, who's the National Welfare Officer of Guta, joining us via phone now. Good afternoon to you, sir. And this has been a really unfolding matter that we're still following. Any message now from the Accra Metropolitan Assembly on what your concerns are, and as to whether or not indeed all of these issues will be ironed out? Mr. Benjamin Yeboah, if you can hear me, I'm just asking if you've heard so far from the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. Mr. Yeboah, if you're with us, I'm just asking the question as to whether or not you've heard from the Accra Metropolitan Assembly.
Hello?
Yes, Benjamin Yeboah, I'm asking the question if you've heard from AMA so far.
Not at the moment.
I'm asking because you just have about 24 hours for this deadline to, elapse. That's why I'm asking if you've made any intervention so far to try and meet AMA just to avert, this challenge that's likely to happen.
The point is, we were notified just yesterday, and then today we heard what took place at the place. So definitely we are doing some checks, but formally we've not informed them, but we are doing some follow-ups through our Greater Accra branch.
And what's your checks revealing to you?
We've not had that much information, but we definitely will get to hear of something before the close of day today. And we are sure we can have some sort of understanding before tomorrow morning.
If it does happen that AMA brings their men, to the area to carry out the evacuation or, removal of these stalls, what plans do you have for your members now that, they seem to be handicapped?
Yeah, the poster that was pasted on some of these containers, the occupants had up to tomorrow to show cause why their containers shouldn't be removed from the place. So we are of the thinking that, yes, they might have to show cause in terms of writing to the AMA by close of day today, that is i.e. tomorrow. So we don't see them taking that action. But nonetheless, we are also doing that follow-up to our Greater Accra branch to ensure that whatever it is, we should have some understanding. We have to sit down and then understand what exactly the problem is. Because these occupiers have been in these containers for quite a long time now. And therefore, we really don't see what has brought this immediate sort of threat of evacuation. So definitely, we are sure we'll come to some understanding, especially around this time that we are nearing Xmas festivities. People are anxiously trying to do some business. We don't think whatever it is, even the timing itself is wrong, and we'll definitely get to something before the close of the year.
It's the reason for which I'm asking the question, because you are the National Welfare Officer of GUTA. Some say, well, the claims of the traders should not be taken wholesale. You need to engage the AMA on this matter. That's why I'm asking what steps practically you're taking to either engage AMA to avert, some clashes possibly tomorrow.
Yes, and like I just said earlier, so we are doing some checks to our Greater Accra branch, and I'm sure before close of day today, we would hear something quite okay from them. We are quite hopeful that anything would happen, nothing would happen that will cause the peace at the area to be disrupted. No, we are very much hopeful in that instance. And I'm sure because of close today, before close of today, we'll hear something positive. And so that we can avert any clashes in terms of disturbances.
All right then. Grateful for your time here on the Pulse. Benjamin Yeboah, National Welfare Director for the Ghana Union of Traders Association, joining us on this story. You're watching the Pulse on the Joy News channel. When we get back, we're also looking at the 2024 elections. As a year from now, Ghanaians will be going to the polls to choose the next leader of the country. We'll tell you about a Joy News poll that is currently being carried out on social media, finding out your thoughts about the possible outcome of the election. And thanks for staying with us here on the Pulse on the Joy News channel. The United Nations 2030 agenda as part of Sustainable Development Goals SDG 3 focuses on the issue of universal health coverage. Well, the goal of that universal health coverage scheme is to ensure that all people obtain health services they need without suffering financial hardship when paying for them. Of course, there are many connections between this goal and the state's legal obligation to actually realize the human right to health in the context of this goal. It is important for us to now assess the role of, the private health sector players in making healthcare available to the citizenry. Well, this afternoon, joining us in studio for a further conversation on this and to find out what role private sector can play in achieving this UN SDG is Dr. Enoch Ban from the Healthcare Federation. Good afternoon to you, sir. Welcome to the Pulse, and it's good to have you on our show.
Thank you.
Of course, it's good to start off by looking at, our country's position and how we fared over the years in terms of, drawing closer and closer to universal health coverage. And, of course, Dr. Wisdom here is helping us do the conversation. The point about how we're faring, what's your own assessment of what's happening?
Yeah, thank you very much. And then good afternoon to your listeners. Let me just correct one thing.
Yes.
My name is Dr. Wisdom Amegbele. I'm the president of the Healthcare Federation.
Apologies for that.
Also the CEO of New Crystal Health Services. Yes. So, yes, just to backtrack one more time again on the definition, on the universal health coverage. It's not just about financial constraints. It should be that the populace should be able to have access to the full range of healthcare services when they need it and then wherever they need it. So especially like we are talking about the rural areas, access should include not only the financial constraints, in addition, they should be able to access this service without going through any financial difficulty. And just to put it in context, let me look at our current situation, especially our the rural areas and then the deprived areas. The first thing is that most of the time the access is not available because where they are, services are not available. Most of our facilities are scattered in only focus on the Ashanti region and Greater Accra regions. The other regions are underserved and underrepresented. So there's the problem of physical access to the service. And then there's also when they need it. Sometimes these services are not available all year round. And then they also talk about the range. Most of the time we limit very basic care to the peripherals, and then to be able to access higher level care, you have to come to either Kwalebu or Komfo-Anokye, while these things should be available at the district level. So those are the challenges we are facing, but most importantly, the financial constraints that places on the populace, in the sense that for most of our people, sickness always puts them in a very vicious cycle of borrowing, because once they fall sick, they use all their life savings to cure themselves. And then when they finish, they start all over, and then that cycle continues and never ends. They are being perpetually kept in poverty. So that has had debilitating inability to have access to health care.
And that's why the question comes up about the role, those in the, say, private sector should be trying as much as possible to play just to make sure that we achieve the universal health coverage. How crucial is that, and what kind of role should we see this sector play?
Well, it's very critical, and I think right now the world and then the development partners, even the UN, is now actively promoting that we encourage private health sector to complement the government. The private sector will be able to, we are agile, the private sector is definitely agile, they are able to manage resources more efficiently. So private sector could deploy in areas which government will find difficult to deploy into. And this will be able to expand access that we are talking about. And then Ghana, luckily with our national health insurance system, which is available, we could be able to cut away the financial constraints or the financial difficulties that people face in accessing healthcare.
When it comes to rural communities, there's often the challenge about, the business interest and the fact that when you go into these areas, public healthcare provision is not, enticing for those in the private sector because, well, if they move there, they feel that people cannot afford for the services. How do we bridge that gap, and what's the position of the Federation on that?
Yes, it might seem so, but for Ghana, we are in a uniquely a different position because of our insurance, our health insurance cover, which is universal. So we are, in that sense, Ghana is way ahead of the other African countries. Nigerians are now starting to implement, they are trying to implement their national insurance. I think Benin and other countries are also trying. We are all part of the Federation. So when we go, most of the time, Ghana, we normally talk to them about universal health care coverage because we have the health insurance, which enables you to have access to health care anywhere you are, whenever you need it, without committing yourself to huge financial costs.
So the point now about, moving forward and what practically we can be doing in terms of having a PPP, if we should call it that way, not just having private sector investment, but also government creating that enabling environment. Where do we start off from, and how can we achieve that?
I thank you very much. I think we must start from ourselves. Traditionally we have this, I don't know where it came from, unhealthy rivalry between private and public sector, where there's distrust between both sides. I think the public and then the private should come to see ourselves as one. And then the government must start being discriminatory in some of its policies, where sometimes they say, okay, these ones will be available only to the government facilities, not available to the private facilities. If you have to mind my language, we don't have private Ghanaians and public Ghanaians. We have Ghanaians. So when it comes to healthcare, it should be universal. There shouldn't be discrimination between private and public. And then the private sector has got, the private sector currently, we control about 40%, sometimes 40, 60% of the care that is provided in this country. The private sector right now, there's research which is being confirmed that private health care in Ghana contributed 5% to our GDP last year. Yeah. And then we contributed to 20% of the scant growth that we were able to achieve in the past year. So the private sector has got potential. It will be able to help us achieve the SDG 3, that's provide access to universal healthcare coverage, create jobs. We could reverse the brain drain, and then talk about the employment that we create. Every doctor, once you move a doctor who should have gone to the public sector, you move that doctor to private, that doctor is able to employ nurses, employ lab people, cleaners, drivers, and then the spillover, it spills over all across. And in addition, they will pay taxes to the states. Yeah. And then it could become source of tourism. We talk about tourism, enhancing tourism. Medical tourism is a growing industry where we can tap from the big West African sub-market. And I am even, sometimes I get, I'm hopeful that in the few years to come, Ghana will be exporting healthcare to the other facilities. Instead of exporting the raw humans going as if modern day slavery, we should be able to package our services where we can take over a hospital in the United States or in the UK where they have shortages, and then we manage it for them.
And that's why I'm also interested in what you do at the Federation, because obviously your role will be very necessary in pushing for that change and achieving universal health coverage. What specific programs are you following or implementing just to complement the activities to achieving universal health coverage?
So maybe let me give you a background.
Yes, yes, precisely.
The Ghana Healthcare Federation is a subsidiary. We have the continental body, which is the Africa Healthcare Federation. And then out of the Africa, we have the regional bodies, which we have the West African Federation, East Africa, Central Africa, South Africa, and North African Federation. Ghana, we are the West African Federation. And we are members of the, including Nigeria and other countries. And our role is to promote, we are business-oriented. It's a business-oriented platform to promote private business within our countries and then within the regions, within the various regions, and then among even the sub-regions and continentally. So it's maybe a framework of an after AFCTA arrangement, but this one is focused on healthcare, where we share resources, we share advice and experiences to be able to leverage, to be able to improve the outcomes for our country. Basically, what we do, the Healthcare Federation of Ghana, our facilities are focused on, our actions are focused on 4 key areas. We engage in advocacy, to be as I'm doing now, to be able to create awareness to get involved with government, get involved with policy making and decision. Partner with the government. We don't see government as public as competitors. We are partners. So we want to partner with them. And then other development partners, USAID, GTZ. Currently, USAID is giving us sponsorship to improve our capacity to expand our services. Right. We do consultancy services to prepare our small business. Most of them are now young and growing. We want to build up capacity in terms of making them investment ready so that then we can then work with external collaborators to be able to bring in the necessary investments that will be able to complement the government.
Okay, and we'll wrap up now with some international partnerships which are very crucial to achieving this UHC. Obviously, the WHO and other organizations will come into sharp focus. How are you leveraging the network you have just to reach out to other countries? Peer learning, networking with other organizations just to draw home the need for us to push for universal health coverage?
Yes, that is the center of the West African Federation. For the West African Federation, I think last 2 years, we normally meet every year in one of the countries. Last 2 years, we were in Lagos, Nigeria, where we shared experiences. We had extensive, and I was happy to say the CEO of our National Health Insurance Authority, Dr. Okuboy, was there. He made an excellent presentation to the Nigerians who are now contemplating the idea. That's one of the platforms. This year, we were in Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, Abidjan. We had fruitful interaction over there. And then I'm happy to inform you that next year, 2024, the Federation will be having the West African conference in Ghana. Oh, wow. So Ghana will be hosting the Federation this year. So we'll be counting on you to partner us
Right.
bring it out.
And your message to Ghanaians on the need for citizen participation in this whole universal health coverage advocacy. What role, finally, and speaking to my audience as well, do you feel we can all play to achieve that?
Yeah, I think it's about awareness. Ghanaians, we should be able to be aware that our health is our wealth. One of the major things that has kept us down as a people has been healthcare, poverty, and disease. And we should be, and those three move in a vicious cycle. If we're able to break the health link, we'll be able to break that chain and then to free us to prosperity and wealth. But it starts with taking individual responsibility and action for our lives.
And I'm grateful, Dr. Wisdom, for spending some time with us here on the Pulse. I'm sure that, of course, as your events draw closer, we'll definitely engage and see how we can push this forward. But I'm grateful indeed for your time.
It's been a pleasure, sir.
Okay, let's talk politics now, because exactly a year from today, Ghanaians will be heading to the polls to elect a new president. Incumbent President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo will not be seeking re-election due to constitutional term limits, obviously, but his vice president, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, will be heading into a race to face off with former President John Dramani Mahama, who's seeking to make a comeback. The NPP will have to brace up also possibly for the emergence of a former party stalwart, Alan Kojo-Chermatin, who broke away from the party to contest the presidential elections. Well, Joy News on social media has been putting up a poll, finding out what Ghanaians actually think about the process, and there you have it on the screens. As at the time we were coming on air, over 3,500 votes so far, with 64.4% pointing out that John Dramani Mahama is a candidate they would want to be on the lookout for going into the 2024 elections, and someone they would actually vote for. Then you have, of course, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia coming second to John Dramani Mahama. But he's not entirely the second, because for those who are voting that they might be opting for other candidates apart from these three traditional ones, amounting to some 13.9%. And there you have 13.1 going in for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. And Alan Kojo-Chermatin also seems to be making some significant inroads there with over 8% of the permutations. But what will happen in 2024, likely when Ghanaians go to the polls? A lot of institutions have been doing their analysis. It's a good time to speak to Musa Dankwa, Executive Director, Global Info Analytics, joining us via Zoom now. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. 1 year is a long time in politics, and a lot can change. But what do you have happening? Of course, you've done some polling already, especially for the inner cities and Zongo communities. It appears John Dramani Mahama is leading in that space as well. What's accounting for this early lead, if I may put it, in terms of the polling for the former president?
Right. Thank you very much for having me. The poll numbers for John Mahama has been consistent over the last 2 years. He's led from 2022 January, and he's been leading since. And I think his lead became more apparent after the passage of the e-levy, and then when the economic crisis hit us full force. Since then, he's remained on top in terms of voters' choice. Now, the three top issues facing Ghanaians at the moment that will bother them, and they will keep that in mind when they go to the polls, are the economy, jobs, education. And the fourth one is corruption. So if you look at the current economic situation, it's not favoring the government, no doubt about it. And if you look at the job situation currently, it's not helping the government either. So these are the things that are weighing down the ruling government's performance in the polls.
And when you say, it's weighing them down, there's the question as to whether or not that would translate into actual votes. I recall, of course, the conversation we had when Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia was heading in for the presidential primaries within his own political party. You made some projections, and of course, some dynamics had changed. What's likely to change, a year from now going into the 2024 elections in terms of how big some other factors might shift the kind of polling we're seeing now?
If you look at the current poll that we have, that was the October poll, it's quite a set the tone for what we're going to see. In that poll, John Mahama was leading with 48% of the polls. followed by Dr. Mahmoud Baumia on 28%. Then you have Alan Chermatin on 11%. We expect the order to be the same. Baumia leading, followed by, Mahama leading, followed by Baumia and Alan. Now, the fight at the moment is between Baumia and Kennedy, and Alan Chermatin with regards to the MPP base. Currently, they are splitting the MPP base, and that is what is going to probably do the damage to Baumia if care is not taken.
I see. And when you say it's likely to do damage, what's the permutation there?
No, we've seen Alan at the moment on about 16% in Ashanti region. And that is quite big. And then nationally, it's about 11%. Now, if you look at John Mahama, he has barely shifted in the race in terms of his numbers when Alan entered the race. He came down quite a bit, but not significantly far from 50% plus one. And what we are seeing is erosion in Baumia's base, where he normally was around 37% in the July poll. Is now dropped to 28%. It tells you that Alan coming in the race has really dragged him down.
I see. The dynamics of the running mates, of course, all these two leading figures have not yet announced publicly who will be partnering them into the next election. Could that be a major factor?
I've said severally that this election, this cycle of election, running mates will not really matter. This election will be about the top tickets. And if you look at the MPP, for example, if they select someone from Ashanti region is always their base anyway. So it's not going to fundamentally alter the race if they pick someone from Ashanti region. I mean, I don't see anybody changing or altering the race fundamentally in this country today, other than the two leading candidates or the three competing candidates, Alan, Baumia, and Mahama. For me, the running mates will not matter this election cycle.
I see. And you have on your screens right now the polling we've been doing so far. I don't know if that matches with what it is that you've done so far. Yet to the election, what's your projection? Is that similar to, at least in terms of ranking, what we're seeing on the screens right now? You see John Dramani Mahama there. Alan Kojo Chermatin making some significant inroads there in terms of 8%. Of the polling we've done so far. We're not saying that's what will happen in the 2024 elections, but how close or otherwise is that to the projections you're doing?
It is just that Mahama is doing far better in your poll than he's currently doing nationally.
Right.
But the order is the same. The order is the same, and you could see that the votes that could have gone to Baumia is now going to Alan, and that's where the problem for MPP lies in 2024.
And so if we add, of course, Alan's permutation to that of Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, he still would have to deal with other candidates. And if you look at, of course, the other candidates, 13.9%, that's the projection. Is this the time for a third force, or are they becoming more of a bargaining block within the 2024 elections?
Now, if anybody can be a third force, it has to be Alan. I mean, from what we have seen, I don't see any candidate that is yet to emerge that would be better than Alan Chermatin in the coming election. Now, what Alan must seek to do is to make sure that he performs a certain level that will drag the race into runoff. At the moment, the modeling doesn't suggest a runoff. He needs to do a lot better among people who are NDC voters. At the moment, he is digging a lot into the MPP base and not so much within the NDC. If he's able to dig a lot from the NDC, then we could see the race going into runoff. At the moment, that is not showing.
I see. And of course, I'll save the details for later because I'm certain that you'll be coming out with more. That's Musa Dankwa joining us from the Global Info Analytics and helping us with some analysis, a prelude to the 2024 general elections. Well, this afternoon, the minority in Parliament say that their stance on the 2024 budget remains unchanged, vowing to scuttle the approval of the 2024 budget statement. Today, Parliament is holding a head count to decide whether or not that economic statement will go through. We have live visuals coming through from Parliament, as you see on the screens now, of course, with the majority leader on his feet, I believe, setting the ball rolling for the proceedings for today.
It
does not involve mentioning names one by one. Since when have we done this? Since when have we done this? Mr. Speaker, with the greatest respect, we are ready. The House is ready. The House is ready. We don't want to waste time on this. Let there be the head count as the practice is. And then we move on.
Honourable members, there is no disagreement in this matter. I have not said that anybody should stand at anybody's seat. I said you will stand at your seat and you'll be counted. That's all what I said. Yes. And so when they mention your name, you stand at your seat, not at anybody's seat. And you'll be counted. You stand at your seat and be counted. So, honourable members, let's start.
Abaka Samuel Erickson.
Please, we've started. Let's listen to each other. Yes, clerk.
Abaka Samuel Erickson.
Honourable members, please, when you get up and you stand at your seat, you let us know what you are voting for, yes or no. Honourable members, please. Honourable members, unless we are saying that all those on my right are voting in a block and those on my left are voting in block. If not, I will not be able to tell, and the table office will not be able to tell whether the person voted yes or no. If we take that decision, then we are well guided. Honourable members, the shouting will not take us anywhere. The yelling will not take us anywhere. You have to keep quiet and let us count the hairs. Finish. Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there's no doubt at all about what is contained in our orders. Our orders provide. Order 1132. A member may call for a head count or division if the opinion of Mr. Speaker on the voice vote is challenged. That was what was done by the Deputy Minority. And 1134 provides, in the case of head count, Mr. Speaker shall take the vote of the House by calling upon members who support or oppose to his decision successively to rise in their places. Mr. Speaker, so for those who support it, you said the ayes have it. So now it will be for you to ask who support the ayes. And then the ayes will rise up to be counted. That is what it is. Those who are opposed to it, who said no, you call for those who support the no. And they will get up. This is the convention and practice of this house. Away from this prevarication and trying to value the others. With the greatest respect, I'm pleading with you. Let's conform to what we have been doing always. Call for those who support the ayes, they will rise up. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will be one side. They may come from the other side as well. So let's do that, and then we'll move on with the greatest respect.
Honorable Majority Leader, the same standing order you read, which is 1133, says, in the case of head count, Mr. Speaker shall take the vote of the House by calling upon members who support or oppose his decision. That is my decision. Successively to rise in their places. Yes. Honorable members, this decision of mine was taken some days back, not today. It was taken some days back. For some reason, we couldn't take the vote that day. We are now doing it today. And what is left to be done is to count the heads. That is what is there. The word. We are now, please, successive. Honorable members, this cannot compel the Speaker to let them count your heads. You better resume your seats. You don't achieve anything by this. Even after all what I do here, when you go out and misrepresent what I do here to the public and let them attack me, I listen to everything. It's only I don't react. Please, the differences between what the majority leader is saying and what I'm saying is the interpretation of the word successively. Successively. That is in the standing orders. Please. Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I see no reason why we should litigate over this matter. Mr. Speaker, I say this because you are absolutely right, Honorable Speaker. The language in our standing order 1133, is clear. And the use of the word successively does not mean we should rise in groups. It simply means one after the other. So, Mr. Speaker, you are right. And I see no reason why we should litigate over this matter. Mr. Speaker, if we had started, I'm sure by now, at least we may be halfway through it. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge you to continue the process because, Mr. Speaker, clearly, Order 1133 is clear on this matter and we should not deviate from that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, I disagree with this interpretation and I must emphasize it. I strongly disagree. However, knowing that you want to stick to your position, I will surrender. Let's do the head count. Whatever you want to do, let's do it. We are ready. Let's do it.
Majority Leader, don't give the impression that this is the first time this is being done. We have done this a number of times on this floor. Please. We have done this a number of times. The records can bear me out. The official reports are there. Don't give any impression that this is the first time it's been done. Please. Again, the guidance you leadership gave me is what I am following. I have not departed from that guidance. Please. Clerk at the table, may we start? Is it the case that anybody standing from my right side is for ayes? Those standing from my left for noes? In that case, you don't have to mention ayes or noes, but the names will have to be mentioned. Please go on.
Abaka Samuel Erickson. Abanga Abdullahi. Abdullahi Jacob Idris. Abdullahi Jacob Idris. Alaji. Abdul Latif Dan. Where's that? Abdul Salam Adams. Abdulakwa Samuel Kujato. Abuaji George Kwame.
National Live here on Joy News, our live coverage of proceedings here from Parliament. What is currently happening is the head count regarding the 2024 budget approval. You will recall that only a few days back there was a vote on the budget presentation and economic policy. There was a voice vote. The majority voted for it, the minority voted against it, and they called for a head count. And the head count is happening today, 7th December 2023. This is crucial because the 2024 budget is necessary for the economic estimates that will be put before the House to be dealt with before the final appropriation is passed. It's a full House. Almost all MPs are here. I've scanned around. I can't see specifically any seat that is vacant except the seat of James Jachikwesin, the NDC MP for Asin North, who has been unwell for some time and has now been airlifted to seek medical attention in Canada. He is the only person that is outside currently, but almost all persons are currently present in the House. The clerks at table are mentioning the names in alphabetical order. If they call you, you stand in your chair and you signify to the clerks at table that you are present, and the vote is going to continue. Ultimately, we expect that the majority side will carry this. All ministers and delegates who left the country to attend COP28 have all now arrived and are all in Parliament. I see the Minister for Energy, Matthew Poku Prempe, the Minister for Environment, Science and Technology. Kennedy Japan had also traveled to the United States for some time. He has also arrived in the country. So for the majority side, it's almost a full house unless someone, perchance, is not available in the chamber today. And that will mean that this will give the minority some leeway over there. So barring any unforeseen circumstance, we expect that the 2024 budget and economic policy will go through because almost all MPs are present. The majority side have 138, the NDC side have 137, with one of their colleagues, James Achegwesen, not currently available because he has not been feeling so well. If you get into the strategy of the minority is to let the public know that they fought this every step of the way and have gotten to the point where the numbers do not bear them out. They don't have the numbers. And so this is to put this on record, that they have fought against the 2024 budget. They could not succeed because they just don't have the numbers. So really critical scenes, as you can see from the shots, that it's a full chamber as the clerks at table marks the attendance in alphabetical order to see which MP is present and which MP is not present. You're still live on Joy News. Our feed is live from Parliament of Ghana, where the crucial vote on the 2024 budget is happening. The finance minister is seated in the House. Really critical budget for him to be able to spend in 2024. He has just about 2 weeks to run out of money to spend if the 2023 budget does not go through. You see the minority MPs watching with eagle eyes to see if any majority MP is absent. That will be crucial. That will be critical. And like we've explained, if everything that we've seen so far is to continue like that, this budget will go through because the majority side have been able to whip almost all. In fact, all of them are currently in Parliament as this vote happens.
Alhassan Abdullah Idi, Alhassan Bashir A. Fuseni, Alhassan Lydia Seyram, Alhassan Shaibu Suwini, no. Ali Muhammad Umar Farouk, Alaute Angela Boriwa, Amankwa Nicholas, Amankwa Menu Kofi, Amau John Peter, Chirame.
Apologies there. It appears we've lost the link to Parliament. Of course, we're continuing that coverage of the 2024 budget approval. You see the Speaker of Parliament now giving that order for a head count to begin, and that process is underway with some fierce resistance, though, from the majority side of the House, raising concerns about the approach or modalities for the head count. Will be crossing back to Parliament shortly to get the very latest on the concerns emerging from Parliament. But if you do recall, the background to this is that the majority side last week had to stage a walkout in Parliament after the Speaker ordered a head count owing to some protests by the minority side that the vote on the voice vote actually on the 2024 budget approval is not clear enough, a reason for which we saw the Speaker of Parliament order for voting, if we should put it that way, to happen this week. And that's the exercise underway in Parliament, where, of course, we now know that there are, in fact, some MPs, or at least one MP that's not present before the House, as indicated by my colleague Kweku Asante, who's our parliamentary correspondent, monitoring all of the developments for us. We're taking you back shortly just to get a view and a feel of the voting which is underway. We can now cross you over.
Siama is a Kwame. Siama Kwabna Amankwa. Siama Eje Nana Amadupua. As a Vincent Oko, Atame Samuel, Abedi James Kruche, Avoka Cletus Apul, Ewa Ignatius Bafo, Awuni Teresa Ladi. Ayamba Ladi Ayarga Mama Aiku Benjamin Nati Aine Dominic Doctor Bafi Michael Tree Bafi Michael Tree Baba Benson Tongo, Bali the Bright, Bachi, Yalavi, Doctor, Bandim, Azuma Abednego, Bano Patrick, Battle Sheila, Bawa Edward, Bejira Emmanuel Kwesi, Betino Joseph, Blanton Alex, Boachi Henry Yadon, Boachi Yadon Patrick, Doctor, Boama Patrick Yao. Boati Akwesi Dakun, Boati Amapoma, Boati Joseph Apia, Bobie Evans Oboku, Bojo Daniel, Brahma Ahmad Bawa, Boa Emmanuel Amakofi, Bukari Joseph Ipe, Shiana Amidu Ishaku, Trajia Samson Kangobu, Chuache Andre Dari, Prince Abeku, Kujo Comfort Doyo, Kujo Joseph, Kujo Robert Wisdom, Lapiameko Roxon Nelson Eche Kwame. Kalu Thomas Ada. Kapila Kletu Seidu. Daku Daniel Ohini. Daku Mensa Kwabena Ochi. Dauda Collins Alhaji. Daudi Abukari. Terry Ambrose. Jonabua Alex Tete. Donko Elvis Morris. Donko Kwabena. Duka George Miriku. Iyanana. Fojo in team, Reverend. Force in Kessel Atuba, Doctor. Frempong Joseph. Gakpe Kwame Jujoli. George Samuel Nati. Ganza Alasan Kobena. Gate Joe. Gidisu Wisdom. Gomado Yao. Gomashi Abdullah Jifa. Jesse. John Alexander. John Mensa Richard. Hammond Kobinata Head. Ansenote Ace. Haruna Seidu. Effort for Filia Mensa. Otoji Alexander Roosevelt. Ibrahim Ahmed. Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed. Ibrahim Zura Mohammed. Idrisu Habib. Idrisu Haruna. Isifu Seidu. Jabba John Benan. Jaja Yusuf Isaka. Jalula Stephen Pambi. Jesel Godfrey Seidu, Doctor. Jinapo John Abdullahi. Jinapo Samuel Abdullahi. Kini Kisi Dixon Adumako Doctor. Funedu Akwesi present. Thompson Davis Howard. Kosa Martin Kwaku Ajay Mensa. Kodo Benjamin Komla. Kum Ebenezer Kojo. Kuma John Mboswa, Doctor. Kuma Joseph Kwame. Present. Kuyon Solomon. Kwachia Kapita Yao. Kwati Kwaku Ajimai. Kofi Festus Ewua Doctor. J. Mensa Bonsu Osei. Trami Nelson. Labi Oscar Ofori. Lati Agnes Namomo. Doctor. Lewa Oscar. Mama Asei Seini. You are present. Mama Nessa Turi. Manu Adabo Francis. Marfo Doctor. Mabo Kofi Ahinkura. Boba Thomas. Mensa Betty Nana Ifua Crosby. Mensa Francisca Otin. Mensa Isaac Ajay. Aziz Ayaba. Nanja Sanja. Napari Dominic. Nawan Mark Kurt, Doctor. Newman Dakwan. Nitiwo Dominic. Nkansa Bwedu Mavis. Nogwe Kofi Akun. Nogwe Ernest Henry. Nochu Kotwe Peter Kwesi. Ntim Adelaide. Ntim Augustine Collins. Ntosu Helen Ajua. Nyangote Albert Tete, Doctor. Nyanko Bismarck Tete. Nyanko Kingsley, Prof. Nyanko Kwamina Menta, Doctor. Obi Ntechi Bensa Kwabina. Yes. Obi Mbwati Alfred. Oklulinda Obiniwa Akwile. Odamte Isaac Ashia. Obosua Jari Elizabeth. Okubo Dr. Williams. Ochiri Ejekum Kofi. Obogu Davis Ansa. Obogu Eric. Obogu Isaac Yao, Doctor. Obong Nkrumah Kojo. Osai John Frempong. Osai Kennedy Nyako. Osai Asari Abna. Osai Asari Abna. Osai. Okay. Osai Owusu Joseph. Osai Owusu Joseph. Oti John Kwabena Bless. Otuta Christian Bolete. Owusu Bio Benito. Esla Ekufo Owusu. Pay to death on the graft. Purple Abdul Rashid Hassan, doctor.
The counting is still underway in Parliament. You just saw some scuffle because Abinosi Asare, the Deputy Minister for Finance, was not in the chamber when it was mentioned. Let me speak to one of the very senior people here. Okay, I'll come to him in a bit. But yeah, the voting has continued currently. Almost all MPs they've called so far are present. James Jachikwesin's name has just been mentioned, and he is absent. James Jachikwesin is absent. The MP for Assin North, we all know, for some time has not been well and has been has been in Canada for healthcare. He's absent. But the scuffle and the confusion on the floor was when the name of Abinosi Asare, the Deputy Finance Minister, was mentioned and she was not available. So this will be about the numbers, and ultimately we expect that this vote will end as 138 in favor of the majority and 136 for the minority because of the absence of James Jachikwesin. That is the only MP we know and can categorically confirm is currently absent from Parliament. Every other MP is currently present, which means all 138 that the majority side have currently are seated in their places and will be called upon and will be on their feet. The counting is still ongoing. For those of you who are just tuning in, this is our live coverage of the head count on the 2024 budget approval process in Parliament. It will be recalled that last week when the motion was concluded, the debate was concluded on the motion to approve the budget statement and economic policy, there was a vote, a voice vote at that. The Speaker's opinion was that the ayes had it. Those who voted for the budget had won. This opinion of the Speaker was challenged by the minority leadership who called for a head count. And that head count is what is happening currently. It was moved from Thursday. We expected it would happen on Friday. It did not happen on Friday. On Monday, it didn't happen. On Tuesday, yesterday as well, it didn't, up until just now that the vote is currently happening with MPs on both sides really counting the votes. But as we have come to learn, this will ultimately end down to a two-member majority in favor of the NPP caucus, because all 138 of their side members are currently in Parliament, and the 136 in favor of the minority are also here, with the exception of James Jachikwesin, the MP for Assin North, who has not been well and has been at the hospital for some time now. Let's take you back to the floor and listen as the names are called and MPs stand up to be counted in their chairs. Let me just run by you literally that when this vote was expected to happen, when it started, there was some concerns from the former Attorney General and MP for Sikado Ketan Jogati, who argued that there should be no vote on the statement, but only estimates and appropriation, because in his opinion, the budget statement should not be voted on, and that a convention that had been adopted by the House over the years, where a vote had been taken on the budget statement and economic policy, was simply erroneous. And the only thing MPs were actually required to vote on will be the estimates and appropriation. Mahama Yaga fought back and said that Jogati was completely wrong, and that once there was a motion, a decision had to be taken, and a vote was necessary for that decision to be taken, unless, of course, it was a consensus decision. The Speaker then ruled that the heads will be counted, and that is exactly what is going on the floor now.
Papa Daniel Sala, Rakup Robe Bright, Woyome Kwabena Mensan, Ziedin B, and 1,000 more. Honorable members, at the end of the head count, ayes 138, noes 136, Absent 1. Honorable members, the ayes have it. Honorable members, this House has accordingly approved the budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2024. Honorable members, the issue raised by Honorable Joe Garte is an issue that has come up a number of times in this House. A number of members in the previous Parliament and currently, and even at the post-budget workshop, the Majority Leader raised this issue. It's an issue worthy of consideration. We have gone through the provisions of the Constitution and the standing orders of the House, and there is a need for us to take a second look at the standing orders of the House. Definitely, there are more provisions to look at in the Constitution than what you have been referred to. And I have taken some time to go through these provisions, particularly when this matter was reiterated last week by some members of this House after we could not take the vote. The Standing Orders Committee has taken a deep look into the matter and will be proposing for the consideration of this House during the consideration and the adoption of a resolution to revise these standing orders. And so we've made some proposals therein for your consideration as to how to handle this matter. We have either to pass an act or in some situations a resolution, and some provisions talk about approval, particularly when you are dealing with the capital expenditure of the judiciary. Again, when you are dealing with a supplementary budget, that definitely talks about approval. At what stage do you give the approval is the other consideration we looked at. And we all know that is the appropriation bill, whether it's supplementary or not, is what we usually approve, pass into the law. And that is also provided for in the Constitution. And so we will look at it together, realign it, and then see how best to handle such situations, because I foresee in the near future this country having a minority government. And if you have a minority government and the standing orders don't provide for all this scenario, the minority government will always have a problem in getting its budget approved, particularly as members are so partisan. extremely partisan. I know how brilliant members are. But when it comes to debate on the floor or on radio stations, they are carried away by partisan considerations, not what is right or what is good. And so we've taken a deep look at that, and we have revised the standing orders. Latest by next week, it will come before you. Because what I've just done is a declaration of the results. But that word doesn't find expression in our standing orders. I just declared the results. It's not a decision taken by me. It's a decision taken by you. I've just declared the results. And so we've done a lot of work on it. And definitely it's something that members should take seriously. With this, we move on to some urgent business. And I'm sure members will have received copies of the order paper addendum. Order paper addendum. Honorable members, this is a matter that had been considered by the House before, and I think in the report of the committee, there was an insertion that is in complete conflict with the decision of the Supreme Court. As to agencies set up for commercial purposes, whether there are transactions in connection with facilities, particularly financial facilities and agreements, fall under the purview of Article 1815. The Supreme Court has delivered a judgment in that matter, but that seemed not to have been factored in the earlier decision of the House. And so the committee itself made recommendations on it, and this instrument, this memorandum has been brought forward to rectify the situation. And so I'll be calling on the Minister for Energy to present it to us for our consideration. That is what it's meant to do. Well, let them present it. What is it? Honorable Haruna.
Mr. Speaker, I have no difficulty with the presentation. I'm familiar with the standing orders, but if you read what is there, it ends with the words, "for the attention of Parliament," in order paper addendum. Every paper presented here is for the attention of Parliament. So you cannot present a paper ending with the words, "for the attention of Parliament." I have no difficulty. You can go ahead. But when you put words matter here, you are laying a paper. Lay it. You cannot lay a paper and put in the words there, "for the attention of Parliament." Every paper laid here is for the attention of Parliament. He can proceed to do it, but expunge those words, in my view. Thank you.
Honorable members, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu is right. It should end at energy. So it's memorandum on terms and conditions of refinancing of the Litasco Phase 6A facility pursuant to the recommendation of the Committee on Mines and Energy.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Majority Leader.
The Minister has hesitated to assent to some documents in his office. So the Deputy Minister is here. You can do the presentation on behalf of the Minister. As for what my colleague, the former minority leader did, Mr. Speaker, I'm not too sure that it's subject to litigation because until the paper is presented, there's nothing before us. You go to argue about nothingness when there's nothing before us.
Well, I drew his attention, but he said I should hear him, so I've heard.
My colleague, the former minority leader did, Mr. Speaker, I'm not too sure that it's subject to litigation because until the paper is presented, there's nothing before us. You go to argue about nothingness when there's nothing before us.
Well, I drew his attention, but he said I should hear him, so I've heard him. That's all right.
Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Minister is here. Let him do the presentation.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, we saw the Minister a moment ago, and I thought this matter is a serious matter that the Minister himself should have been here to lay. But, Mr. Speaker, in any case, let us allow the Deputy Minister to lay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Memorandum on terms and conditions of refinancing of the Litasco Phase 6 facility, pursuant to the recommendation of the Committee on Mines and Energy.
Honorable members, the paper is accordingly referred to the Committee on Energy for consideration and report to the House. Honorable members, just the last issue, and then we get the guidance of leadership. You recall I mentioned earlier on that I had to pen to the Minister for Finance for and on your behalf on some takeaways from the debate on the 2024 budget and economic policy of government. What we just took the head count on. I think the Minister has stepped out, but they've acknowledged receipt of the communication and have indication that they will act on it. And so I'll be following up on your behalf on this matter because I deem it that is very dear to the hearts of members. The takeaways are on various areas that members emphasized on the debate, in the debate of the budget. I'm sure you've forgotten, and it's quite a lengthy letter. I can't read all of it, but if you want me to mention some, I will do so. You want a reminder? Yes.
Mr. Speaker, you were keenly following the debate, and you indicate that you have stranded out very important components of the debate and transmitted the thinking of the House. Or should I use the opinion of the House to the Minister for Finance? And we believe you, so I think we don't need to go through whatever communication that you have done.
I should go through. Yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, what was that you paid attention to the debate and you have taken note of key concerns of members, and that you have put it in the form of a letter to be communicated to the minister responsible for finance. Mr. Speaker, I think in view of that, that is enough. And so there's no need for you to go through it or read it to us. Maybe you can communicate same accordingly to the minister responsible.
We usually have problems with our system, so I didn't get the import of your submissions. Is it that I should go over it again, or what I've done suffices for the House?
The Speaker, what you have done suffices, and there's no need for you to go over it again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Honourable Speaker, I do not know whether we'll have the benefit of your observations. What you observe, whether members of the House will have a copy of what we are trying to communicate. Because we also have to own what the observations are for our own thinking and progress.
Actually, earlier on, I gave an indication to those observations here in the House. I did. Just because we've just taken the head count, I'm reminding members that I've already done that, and I've got a feedback that they are definitely looking at the submissions members have made. They had to do some sectors. They have to do with taxes. The taxes that issues were raised on some sectors that is a need to scale up the provisions for those sectors. And then some key issues concerning education, particularly our students, the tablets and the rest. Those are the issues. They are not contentious. Yes, leadership.
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, if you can deal with items 39 and 40.
38?
39. 39.
39.
Yes, on page 21, and then 40 on page 22.
Honourable members, item 39 at page 21 of the order paper. Is there a question to be put? That is on the Ghana Industrial Property Office Bill 2023 being now read the second time. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Carried.
An act to establish the Ghana Industrial Property Office for the protection and use of patents, trademarks, industrial designs, geographical indications, and plant varieties, and to provide for related matters.
Honourable members, the Ghana Industrial Property Office Bill 2023 is deemed to have been read the second time. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on item 40, it is captured wrongly in the order paper. It says that debate to commence. And Mr. Speaker, I recall that the last time the motion was moved, seconded, and then we did debate on that. So it was also left with the question to be put. So it's in the same category of as item number 39. And that is the correction I seek to make, please.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, it is difficult to, I'm not doubting my colleague, but if it's captured, debate to commence. We can't just say that it's wrong. I mean, this is not a vote and proceedings. So, Mr. Speaker, this is not any urgent bill. Can we leave this tomorrow so that the table office, and we can even use the Hansard to confirm what was actually said that day. So we don't do the wrong thing. So we don't do the wrong thing by avoiding the debate on it and just putting the question, Mr. Speaker. And tomorrow somebody will say that a bill was introduced and no debate was done and then we pass it. So, Mr. Speaker, let's tread cautiously on this. It's not an emergency bill, so we can leave this till tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Chairman, the table office is not sure the debate was concluded. So we'll put it that debate to continue. But honorable members, there are some key bills that we have to consider before we go on recess. That we have to finish before we go on recess. One of them is the affirmative action gender equality bill. Even though we said it was not proper for it to be brought under a certificate of urgency, we all know the key role that bill will play in the development of the country. And so we just gave the committee the opportunity. They advised us it's not right for it to be brought under a certificate of urgency.